Hi everyone, welcome to one more video and thank you so much for watching. Past few videos on my channel were dedicated to non-language related stuff, so in today's video I decided to go back to languages. But today I'm not gonna talk about languages I speak, instead I'm gonna talk about languages I gave up on learning. I believe that every polyglot out there or every language enthusiast has started to learn a few languages and then gave up on them, because even though you love languages, sometimes you just realize that some language is not for you and you have to give up, or you become too busy and you don't have time to learn it. There are so many different reasons why people give up on learning languages. I'm going to talk about 5 languages today that I started to learn and then gave up on them, and I'm going to explain you for what reasons I gave up. So I hope you're gonna learn something new today and I hope you're gonna enjoy my video. Let's start. So the first language I gave up on was Hungarian. 6 years ago, I feel so old when I say 6 years ago, but 6 years ago I used to live in Prague, Czech Republic, and I kind of fell in love with Central Europe. And trust me, if you have been there, you already know how amazing Central Europe is. If you haven't been there, you have to go. It's beautiful, very rich culturally. I mean, it's perfect in every single sense. So I was living in Prague and I spoke Czech at that time. And I traveled a little bit to surrounding countries. One of those countries was Hungary. I fell in love with Budapest. And I was wondering, okay, if I'm living in Central Europe, if I'm so interested in its culture, why wouldn't I try to learn Hungarian, considering that it would be a big challenge for me as a polyglot, because Hungarian is totally different than anything I spoke at that point. That it's different than all the languages I speak. It's known as very hard and very complicated to learn for foreigners. So I was like, okay, this might be a new challenge for me. Why don't I give it a try? So I started same way I started with any other language, on internet, without a teacher, without going to classes. I started with learning the basics like greetings and saying hi, thank you, my name is, all those normal things. In the beginning it was fine. I mean, it is definitely different than any other language I know. Vocabulary is pretty interesting and different, but vocabulary and the basics were not hard for me to learn, and I still remember a lot from what I have learned. I still know how to say jó napot kívánok, köszönöm szépen, few other things that I will remember during the video. So in the beginning it was fine. I also visited Budapest once more after that. It's a beautiful city, and the fascinating thing for me was the fact that Hungary is actually pretty close to my home country as well, but the language is totally different. And before I started to learn Hungarian, I actually didn't know that much about Hungarian culture, even though they're so close. And also in Prague, I have met few Hungarians, native speakers, so I was thinking, okay, when I learn a little bit better, I will have someone to practice Hungarian with. Well, those were my dreams. At some point, I started learning grammar, same as everyone does when learning new language, and that's where problems started, because Hungarian grammar is really complicated. Like really complicated. People say the same thing about Slavic languages like Serbian, Russian, Czech, and that's true, but considering that my native language is Slavic, for me, Slavic grammar is easy. Hungarian, on the other hand, is super complicated, and that was the first problem. The second problem was the fact that a little bit after that, maybe a year after I started learning Hungarian, I started traveling. I moved out from Czech Republic, so I realized that when you start traveling and when your life starts becoming more interesting and more exciting, you become lazy to actually do things. So I was traveling around the world. I completely forgot about learning languages. I was practicing languages that I already spoke with people from all around the world, but I just didn't have time to sit and actually study. So that was when I actually gave up on learning Hungarian, which I feel kind of sorry for, because I believe that if I dedicated more time to it, I could speak it today, maybe on some A2 level or B1 or something like that. But the good thing is, I was in Hungary a little bit more than a year ago in Budapest, and I remember walking around the streets and seeing like names, utca or híd, I think that's how you pronounce the word for bridge. And I still remember all those words. So I feel that I have a good memory for vocabulary. I haven't forgot that much, but I gave up on Hungarian and unfortunately I don't speak it today. Second language I gave up on learning is Turkish. 4 years ago, I spent some time in Turkey. It was like 2-3 months. I loved the country. It was not my first time there. I went there a long time ago for a few days to visit Istanbul, and I fell in love. It was love from the first sight, and I believe that's what happens to everyone who visits Turkey, because it's really beautiful country with amazing food. People are super nice, so it's easy to actually fall in love with Turkey. And while I was there, I decided to give a little try to Turkish. The thing with Turkish is it's totally different than my native language. It's different than all the languages I speak. But when you are coming from the Balkans, you already know a lot of Turkish words because we were part of Ottoman Empire at some point of our history. So they left a lot here in the Balkans, including many words, many expressions. And a lot of people who are not that educated in like language field don't know it. But we people from the Balkans, even though our native language is Slavic, most of us have Slavic language as our native one, we still use a lot of Turkish words. So I can't really tell that I had big plans for Turkish. I kind of felt that I'm never gonna speak it, but I tried to learn. And same as with Hungarian, I started from the basics. It was actually way easier because when you are in a country, it's much easier to learn a lot, even without trying, than when you are somewhere outside of the country without everyday contact with the language. So I learned the greetings, I learned how to say thank you, how to ask for directions, I learned names for probably every single dish they have in Turkey. And also I would go to supermarket, and I love supermarkets. I was walking around and I was learning words for food like cheese or meat or so on. And I also learned words for every single clothing item there is. Dress, t-shirt, pants, and so on. That's my favorite part of the language, together with food. So that was an easy part. Again, I think I have great memory for vocabulary. It's not hard for me to memorize words, and I usually never forget them. I tested that when I was in Istanbul now in November, last November or October. Anyway, a few months ago, I was there with my brother just for a few days as a tourist, and I still remember all those words I learned. I would say that I speak tourist Turkish, so I can say thank you, hello, how much does this cost, where do I find something, but that's it. Unfortunately, I only speak tourist Turkish, not proper Turkish. And the reason why I gave up on Turkish was the fact that once I left Turkey, I kind of lost my motivation to learn it. And I feel that if I continued with Turkish, it would be easier for me to learn Turkish than Hungarian, because there are so many Turkish TV shows on the TV in the country where I live that I feel if I just watched one or two, it would be easy to learn it actually. But I did not learn it, unfortunately, and I'm still happy that I dedicated some time to Turkish, because now when I go to Turkey, I can kind of say a few basic things, and you have no idea how happy Turkish people are when a foreigner tells them something in Turkish. They're super nice. Third language I gave up on learning was French. I will have to explain you a little bit better this part, because my first contact with French was a long time ago when I was a child. My mom used to learn French in school because back then, during Yugoslavia times, they were not learning English in school. Instead, they were learning, I think, German or French or maybe Russian, but I hope they learned just German and French. So as a child, we had a French dictionary at home. And it was not just a simple dictionary with words and translation, but they had like part with the grammar explained and all those things. So it was kind of like a book for learning French. So as a child, I was interested in languages from very early, and I found that dictionary. It looks so old. It looks like 200 years old, even though it's not. And I started, you know, playing with it, reading a little bit. So the first things that I learned in French was counting to, I think, 20. I can't remember. I think it was 20. I have to say that among all Romanic languages, French is the one that I always considered least interesting to me. Sorry, French people, if you're watching this, but I always thought that Spanish, Italian, and Brazilian Portuguese sound way better. Again, sorry, French people, I know this must be painful to you because French is usually by most of the people considered as beautiful, and I know a bunch of people who are totally in love with the way French sounds. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. I really think that Spanish, for example, sounds much better. But at some point of my life, when I was grown up already, I thought to myself, okay, if you're a polyglot, if you already speak so many languages and some of them are not even that popular or useful, then you might as well try learning French. Because it's weird to say I speak 9 languages, but French is not one of them. It's one of the biggest, most popular languages out there. It's a language of diplomacy, European Union, so on. And another thing that I thought is going to help me learn French is the fact that I already speak Spanish, Italian, and Portuguese. So I thought this is definitely going to help me a lot. And in a way it is helpful because vocabulary, there are many words that are pronounced similarly, or the bases are the same. So when I learn a text, when I read text in French, I can understand a lot. Not everything, but a lot. Then when I hear French people speaking, I can't understand almost anything. But funny thing is, when I hear foreigners or people whose native language is not French speaking French, I understand them much more than native French speakers. I don't know why is that. This only happens with French to me. So the main reason why I decided to actually not learn French in the end was not the grammar. It is harder than in other languages, but it's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem to me is pronunciation is very hard. It's extremely hard. And also I have the feeling, but this is just my personal feeling, that when you're learning other languages, native speakers are usually amazed by you. Even if you mispronounce things, even if you are making mistakes in the grammar, they're still hyping you, telling you you are amazing. They're all happy that you are learning their native language. And I have a feeling that French native speakers, even when you master the language, they're still not satisfied with you. Or they will be looking down on you and saying, you don't sound that good. This never happened to me because I never spoke French, but I have a feeling that's how speaking French would work. So I felt kind of discouraged. I still think that French is, even though I speak 9 languages, I still think that French is too big of a challenge for me. 4th language I gave up on was Arabic. And this is also the first non-European language I'm going to talk about today. I decided to start with Arabic 3 or 4 years ago, I think. And the main reason why I decided to start with Arabic was the fact that it's a huge challenge, even for someone who is experienced in language learning, because it's totally different than anything I knew before. And also, I feel it's interesting to learn because it's spoken in so many countries by so many people. I think it's one of the most spoken languages in the world. I don't know in what place it is exactly, but it is definitely useful to speak it. So in the beginning, I thought that the most complicated thing for me is going to be writing because, as you know, it's different. It was not. I found some very good channel on YouTube, which I can't remember the name. It was some lady. She lives somewhere in Europe, but Arabic is her native language, and she explained everything so well. So I started with writing, And I was surprised how it was hard. Of course it's hard, it's different than anything I knew before, but it was not as hard as I thought. Or the lady that I was learning from was so good in explaining everything that it was easier to learn. So I dedicated, I think, a week or two maybe, but I was dedicating a lot of time daily to Arabic writing. So in like 2 weeks, I would say, maybe even more, I can't remember, I actually learned all the letters. I learned how to write them properly, how to connect them with the letter after, because that's also a thing in Arabic. And I was all motivated with how good it went, because I actually expected it to be much more complicated. So I was all happy and thinking, wow, I did this. If I did the hard part, it's gonna be easier to do the rest. Well, then I started learning more about different dialects. And I think that this is the problem for all non-native speakers who are learning Arabic. Arabic dialects are confusing. That was probably the reason that actually motivated me to stop learning it. Arabic dialects are very different, and people, native speakers from different countries where Arabic is spoken, sometimes have big problems understanding each other, because even though it's the same language, they speak totally differently. And this is something that it's hard to understand when you don't speak a language. Even for me, it's hard to understand. And in the end, I was thinking, okay, when I speak Spanish, I can communicate with people from Spain or with people from Argentina or from Bolivia or from anywhere where Spanish is spoken, and I'm not going to have a problem. While with Arabic, if you learn only certain dialect, you will be able to only communicate with people from that country. If you learn a standard classic Arabic, from what I have read, nobody really speaks it, so like what's the point? So I was thinking, okay, Arabic is hard. I'm probably gonna dedicate a lot of time and effort to learn it, but in the end, I won't be able to speak with that many people as I thought in the beginning. So that kind of discouraged me to actually learn it, which is sad, because I feel that I should add some language that this is totally different than other languages I speak to, like my Polyglot CV. And Arabic was very interesting. It's beautiful. It sounds good to me. I know it doesn't sound good to many people. It does sound good to me, but unfortunately, all those different dialects I kind of lost my motivation to learn it, because I feel that it won't be that useful for me, and I will end up putting a lot of effort into learning, and in the end, I'm not gonna be able to speak with that many people. And the last language I'm gonna talk about today is gonna be Japanese. This is the most recent story, because I tried to learn Japanese very recently, only a few months ago. And I don't think I ever told to anyone that I'm actually trying to learn Japanese. I didn't share it online, which I usually do when I learn other languages. I didn't tell to anyone that I'm trying. I kind of wanted to give it a try and to keep it for myself, because once you say that you're learning a language, people are expecting you to learn it in like 3 months if you're a polyglot. So I kept it to myself. I gave it a try, and the main reason was I really think I should give a try to like non-European language and to something that's totally different than the languages I know. And among all Asian countries, I kind of feel that Japan is the most interesting one to me personally. So I decided to give a try to Japanese. I have to tell you that I didn't have high hopes, because every single person I know, even the most talented polyglots, are having a hard time learning Japanese. So I said, okay, I will give it a try. I'm gonna go, relaxed into this. If I don't manage to learn, it's okay. I already speak 9 languages, so I can give up on some of them. I'm already impressive. Anyway, I started with Japanese. I again found a very good, not a teacher, but like YouTube channel, where they explained everything slowly and with a lot of patience to new learners. I believe that internet is amazing. It's a revolution for us polyglots. So I started online. I first started with a few basic greetings like hello, how are you, and all that. That was not that hard, again, because I memorize words easily. The hard part, and the part where I gave up was right in the beginning, writing. Japanese writing is so complicated. It's in the beginning, before I started to learn Japanese, I thought that the hardest one is Chinese, and everything compared to Chinese, it's going to be more simple. Well, it might be, but it's still so hard. So I remember I still have that like a notebook with all the letters written in kanji and that other thing, kane or whatever it's called. I was motivated while I was learning first 10 signs, and then after that I was like, I don't think I'm smart enough for this. Like, if I was only learning words and how to speak, I might learn way more, but if I have to write, that's too complicated for me. But I believe that the main reason why I gave up on Japanese and why I would give up on any other Asian language is the fact that I believe that when you learn a language, you have to be very interested in a culture of the country or region where it's spoken. So for me, it was super easy, not super easy, but it was easy to learn Spanish because since very little, I was very interested in Latin America. It was easy to learn English because we are surrounded with English and I'm interested in USA, for example. It was easy to learn Greek, even though it's very complicated language for foreigners to learn, because I love Greece, I love its culture, its music, food, everything. And when it comes to Japan or Asia in general, I love Asia. I have been there in few countries. I was so happy there. I hope I'm gonna visit it again. And I wouldn't have anything against spending like few years in Asia, but still I feel that I lack deeper interest in the culture. That's something that I have, for example, with South America. I have a lot of interest in North America as well, in Europe, of course. But when it comes to Asia, I feel like I love it, but I have to love it way more, and I have to be way more interested in it in order to learn a language. So if Japanese is hard, it being hard was the first reason why I gave up, but then also lack of interest, deeper interest in the culture is another reason why I gave up on it. So those were 5 languages I gave up on learning. I don't know if there will be any more. I don't know if I'm gonna try to learn any other language in the future and if I'm gonna manage to learn it or if I'm gonna give up. I have no idea. Life is long, so let's see. I hope you learned something new in this video, in a sense that I believe that once you decide to learn a language for fun as a polyglot or as language enthusiast, it's very important to set your goals, and it's very important to decide why are you learning the language. And again, I said it with the Japanese, I think it's very important to actually have interest in the culture and the country or region where it's spoken, because if you don't, at some point you might have a problem with learning. So those 5 languages I gave up on, but I don't think that I was actually losing time learning them, because no knowledge is useless. That's one of the things I'm repeating all the time. So even though I can't tell that I speak Turkish or Hungarian or Arabic, I still do know some words, and even though I'm never gonna be able to speak with native speakers, I think that knowing anything is very useful. Your brain is doing a great exercise while you are learning, even when you give up, it's still good for your brain to practice a little bit. So I don't think I was actually wasting my time learning those 5, but I'm kind of sad that I gave up on them, but I believe that 9 languages is enough already, and I would love to learn more, but even if I don't, I think I'm fine. So that was it for today. That's my today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun watching, and please let me know in the comments what language are you learning right now and what languages did you give up on, because I know that many polyglots, I would say most of them, have tried to learn certain language at some point and then they gave up on it. So I would really love to see what languages you gave up on and why. See you in my next video. So that was it for today. That's my today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you had fun watching, and please let me know in the comments what language are you learning right now and what languages did you give up on, because I know that many polyglots, I would say most of them, have tried to learn certain language at some point and then they gave up on it. So I would really love to see what languages you gave up on and why. See you in my next video.